أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين. We discussed, so the topic of discussion, as we mentioned in the previous lecture, is the chronological narrative of events related to Karbala. Okay, so we will be discussing, as we say, that the chronological events related to the personalities of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam when it comes to the whole narrative of Karbala. But before that, as we mentioned in the previous discussion, we started with an introductory discussion where we discussed why do historical narratives differ, especially with time and place, the narratives differ. And the reason we presented that is because we want to show, as we go further, as when we give the examples, you will notice that how do these narratives differ with time. Okay, now, what I'm going to present today is not related directly to Karbala. What I want to do is, before I go into the discussion of Karbala, I should present a case study where we discuss this whole concept of evolution. Okay, how does a narrative evolve? Okay, this is exactly what I want to prove today. And the reason I'm giving the example of Yajuj and Majuj, so we want to discuss this narrative changing and evolving using the case study of Yajuj and Majuj very briefly. And the reason I'm giving this example is to demonstrate that this whole evolution of a concept is not only exclusive to the whole narrative of Karbala. Rather, you come to tafsir, you'll see the same things. You come to hadith, you'll find the same things. Even in fiqh also, you will see this evolution. Okay, in every Islamic discipline and other disciplines also, you will see this evolution with time and place. Okay, now, before I come to the whole issue of Yajuj and Majuj or Gog and Magog, what I would like to mention is a few introductory points before we get to the discussion. Introductory point number one. Because we are discussing a story of Quran, Yajuj and Majuj is considered one of the qisas of Quran, the stories of the Quran. So as an introductory point, I would like to mention this, that the stories of the Quran are divided into three. And it's a very important point to keep in mind when we're reading stories in the Quran. And you will see this very clear with those scholars who are a bit research minded. Yes, there's some scholars who will just be literal understanders. We're not discussing them. But you see those scholars who want to a bit understand issues in depth. You will see this very much displaying in itself. As we go on, we'll give example. So, type number one, category number one are those stories which are material or physical stories. By that I mean that these stories can be verified through scientific observations or empirical observations. So you can use your senses and find out that this story happened or not. Okay, so take an example. The body of Fir'aun is lying in Egypt today. Okay, so you conclude that the story between Musa alayhi salam and Fir'aun transpired once in history. Okay, that's one type of story. The second type of stories in the Quran are the metaphysical stories. These are stories which you cannot verify through scientific methods or empirical observations. So you can't use your senses and say, oh, did this happen or not? So the example comes to mind is the example of the story in the beginning of the creation of Adam alayhi salam, or Adam and Shaitan. Okay, and that is why you will notice some of the scholars have gone to its symbolism. As I go, I'll mention this whole issue that this story is symbolic. Okay, this is a second type of stories. The third type of stories in the Quran is where the whole discussion now, and especially today's discussion, comes in. There are stories which are apparently material and physical. Okay, notice the word apparently. Okay, so they're apparently physical and material, but they cannot be proved via the scientific and empirical observations. So you cannot again use your senses and say that this story can be proved scientifically or through our senses or through history, because there's nothing out there to prove. You get me? Okay. Now the example is the example of Dhul-Qarnayn and Yajuj and Majuj, which is the discussion of today. And that is why you will notice that there are multiple opinions coming on this issue. As we go further, we will mention this. Now, because of this difficulty, because of such kind of stories, you will notice that scholars and researchers now divide themselves into three. There are three opinions within scholars as to how to deal with these stories. Okay, one was we divide the stories into three. Now, how do you react to these stories? How do you perceive these stories? Scholars themselves divided themselves into three. The first group of researchers, who are some of the modern progressive thinkers, they have inclined towards this opinion, which they believe that all the stories in the Quran are symbolic. None are real. Symbolic meaning they didn't happen outside. So there was no Musa outside, and there was no Fir'aun outside, and there was no Isa alayhi salam outside, and there was no Hawariyun outside. These are all symbolic stories. Symbolic as the way we do it. You know, when we used to be young in school, our teachers would tell us stories which were not real, but they had messages in them. Okay, that's exactly what these researchers and these thinkers believe in. They say that these stories are symbolic. They have a lot of messages in them, but they're not real. They didn't transpire outside. This is first opinion. The second opinion includes our ulama also, okay? Shia ulama and also Sunni ulama. Now Sunni are more, but Shia ulama also included, the likes of Allama Tabatabai, Shaykh Mutahari, Ayatollah Ma'rifat. These are names which are known in the Quran world. They believe that some of the verses, so in the Sunni world, for example, you have Sheikh Muhammad Abdu, then you have Sheikh Rashid Rida, these are known names. They have also inclined towards this opinion. They believe that some of the stories in the Quran are symbolic. That means they're not real, they didn't transpire. And some are real, they actually happened outside. Okay, this is the second opinion. And the third opinion is the group of scholars who you would call them, well, literalists or traditionalists or whatever you want to call them, that they believe that all the stories are real. Now, we can understand them, we cannot understand them, doesn't matter. It's Allah who has mentioned it, we accept it. Okay, we don't reinterpret the verses the way Allah has wanted. Okay, these are three opinions. That's point number two. Point number three, as an introduction, this was surprising to me when I was listening to Dr. Yasir Qadhi. He has a lecture on this topic of Yajuj and Majuj. It's there on YouTube. If you listen to him, in the beginning only he mentions this. And I don't know, I was very surprised by this. But he says that a lot of people he knows have left Islam because of these stories of Yajuj and Majuj and Dhul-Qarnayn. So you notice these verses of Yajuj and Majuj and Dhul-Qarnayn are one of those difficult verses in the Quran. They're very hard to understand because they have a lot of details in it which are missing. And some of the verses also are very hard to even comprehend also. So Sheikh Yasir Qadhi was saying that a lot of people are leaving Islam because of this. Now, similarly, you have something which Dr. Amina Wadood also mentions in her book, Quran and Woman. So this was her initial book, where she discusses this issue that when women face these fatwas, this understanding which are patriarchal or misogynistic, okay? So we have to accept some of the fatwas, some of the understanding of the Quran are misogynistic at times. They don't favor women, okay? Now, there are two ways of dealing with it, and that's exactly what Dr. Amina Wadood is proposing. She is saying that, see, there are two ways of dealing with it. Either one feels that, oh, everything is wrong in Islam, runs away from Islam, and that's exactly what some are doing. They see 2-3 things within not confirming with the women understanding, they don't favor women, they run away from Islam. What she took up a challenge on herself was this, that she says, I'm going to re-understand these verses and these hadith, okay? And that is why she writes the book Quran and Woman. Now, we agree with her, we don't agree with her, that's not the discussion at the moment. Who is right, who is wrong, that's not, again, my discussion at the moment. All what I'm trying to say is this, that when we are facing these challenges, the solution is not to run away, especially, I want us to please pay attention on this, it's a sensitive matter, especially if we have proved that 90 to 95% of the Quran is correct, okay, is beautiful, okay, that 5 to 10%, so 5 to 10%, some of those atheists and some of those people who question the Quran, you will notice they will bring up 60, 70, 100 verses, they will say that these are problematic verses in the Quran. 100 verses is not even 5% in the Quran, but I'm giving the benefit of the doubt. I'm saying 5%, 10% of the Quran is questionable, God forbid. Still, when you have proven 90% is correct, 90% is aligning with understanding, intellectual understanding, then a logical mind would tell you that, okay, this 10% can have some other explanations also. Okay, the solution is not to run away altogether. The problem comes is here, and this is where I keep on crying, and this is a cry which is towards the youths and those who are running away from Islam, and towards the leaders also, those who are not worried about what's the state of our communities and our societies. Okay, and that's why we don't invest in research also, unfortunately, you know. I was discussing with a friend, again, off topic a bit, but I was discussing with a friend, and I was like, you know, there's an issue now going on in the West, a lot of issues about the gender issues and all other issues which are going on. And this is a challenge which the Muslims and the people who abide by, they follow religions, they are facing now. So now, there's a feeling that, okay, we should have a school, and we should have our own universities. So I was discussing with this brother, and this brother comes and tells me that, okay, I asked him, why is there no school? So he says the investment in a school is very high. So I just turned to the brother and said, okay, what's the investment? 10 million, $15 million? More than that, $15 million, okay? Is that an investment we want to stay away from for the future of our children? You know, this is a question mark we need to ask ourselves. And unfortunately, the Shia community is even left behind on this even further. That we hardly have educational institutions for ourselves. We hardly have universities. I don't know if we have universities apart from the apart from the Muslim majority, the Shia majority states in the Middle East. Outside, I don't know if we have them anymore. I don't know. But this is the feeling I'm having, that we are not investing. And we look at the contrary. You have one film, okay? And this is what example I literally gave to this brother. I said, The Matrix, okay? Matrix was produced for $150 million. This producer doesn't know that is he going to get back the 150 million plus a profit or not. But they invest $150 million for a film, which they don't know if they'll get the profit again or not. Can you see where the directions are, okay? And this is exactly what we need to be doing, that investing more in research, investing more in education so that we can sort out. Now, education here, I don't mean that this artificial and superficial education. Education here meaning the proper research which will give us solutions then, okay? So what I was discussing was this, that these verses, instead of running away from them, we should take it as a challenge, and those issues which are challenging, and take it as a challenge that let's sort them out rather than running away. Okay, now, again, before getting into Yajuj and Majuj, I'm sorry, the introductory points are becoming more. I want to just display how difficult these verses are to give you the different opinions on Dhul-Qarnayn. Dhul-Qarnayn, again, is a topic related to Yajuj and Majuj. So I'm giving you a snapshot of the different opinions on Dhul-Qarnayn to give you an understanding how much these verses are difficult and how many opinions have come out of it. Okay, so come to Dhul-Qarnayn. Who was he? Question number one, who was he? So look at the different opinions. Opinion number one, some say he was a prophet. Some say he was a king. Some say he was both. Some say he was none. Contradictory opinions altogether. Okay, but these are the opinions scholars have gone into and researchers are going into. Some scholars say he's an angel. Okay, so you will see Fakhr Razi proposes this opinion also in his tafsir. Now, strangely, I saw a researcher recently in the Shia world. He is proposing that Dhul-Qarnayn is the 12th Imam alayhi salam, Imam Mahdi alayhi salam. Okay, these are researchers. Now, inshallah, if we get time, we'll mention his reasoning and why he thinks it's the 12th Imam. That's discussion number one. So who was he? Discussion number two, application. Okay, who are the proposed identities of Dhul-Qarnayn? Who do we apply it on? Okay, and that is why you will see some will say Alexander, some will say it was a Yemeni king, some will say it's the Iranian Cyrus Kurush. Okay, and this is the recent opinion now, which scholars are inclining towards, that it's Cyrus, the Iranian Kurush. This is number two. Number three, where did he travel? So this has become an issue now. If he traveled, where did he reach? Especially when we come to the issue of Yajuj and Majuj and the barrier which was being made, you will notice that the scholars differ as where is this barrier? Okay, this is number three. Number four, what did he see and what did he do in his travels? Okay, so some of the verses are also very hard to comprehend. Okay, so for example, the verse says the sun set on Aynin Hamiyya or Aynin Hamiya, as Ibn Abbas used to read. Okay, again, difference of opinion there. Inshallah, if we discuss some other time. The time period which he lived in. Okay, so was he staying? Some say he stayed after the time of Prophet Musa. Some say he stayed between the period of Fatra. Fatra meaning the period after the death of Prophet Isa, which majority of the scholars believe that it was a period where there were no guides and no prophets. There was suspension of the prophets, which I humbly disagree with. There are some scholars who give a different opinion. Inshallah, we might discuss that. Some discuss at the time of Prophet Ibrahim and Ismail alayhi salam. Okay, later as we go further, we'll see some propose at the time of Prophet Isa alayhi salam. This is discussion, another discussion. Another discussion which is very important within Dhul-Qarnayn is what powers did he possess? What could he do? Okay, and you will see strange things mentioned within the books also. And then this is another discussion again. Which wall and barrier did he build and where is it today? And especially when we come to Yajuj and Majuj, you will notice this discussion is very important. Okay, so this was Dhul-Qarnayn. Okay, now when these details are missing in the Quran, you now tend to see that scholars now with time tend to incline towards such supernatural understanding towards some of these events. As we mentioned even in the previous discussion, Ayatollah Yusuf al-Gharawi used to mention, with time you will notice that the mu'jizat and the miracles of the Prophet keep on increasing. Similar understanding you will see here also. With time also, you will notice that the narrative increases, number one, and number two, supernaturality also increases also. And the same example we will see when we come and discuss the events related to the martyrdom of Karbala, of the personalities of the Karbala. You will see a similar, comparison which is there. So let me give an example about Dhul-Qarnayn and then I come to Yajuj and Majuj. I'm presenting one hadith and many hadith to present. This is a hadith I'm presenting from Musannaf of Ibn Abi Shayba, a Sunni author. Similar hadith is there in Tafsir al-Qummi also, which I will mention the difference, what is there. So the riwayah says, Imam Ali alayhi salam was asked about Dhul-Qarnayn. He says, Lam yakun nabiyyan wala malika. Okay, so that opinion would say that he's not a prophet and he's not a king also. This is the hadith they use. That he was not a prophet nor was he a king. وَلَكِنَّهُ كَانَ عَابِدًا. He was a devout worshipper of Allah. He sincerely turned towards Allah and فَنَصَحَهُ, and Allah helped him and sincerely guided him. Now here is the part which I'm interested in. فَدَعَا قَوْمَهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ. He started inviting people towards Allah. فَضُرِبَ عَلَى قَرْنِهِ الْأَيْمَنِ. Now, I don't know what does it mean. When he started inviting people towards Allah, they hit him to the level that his right horn got cut off. They chopped off his right horn until he died. Now, how does a human have a right horn? I don't know. This is the hadith which mentions. The hadith, now notice, فَأَحْيَاهُ اللَّهِ. Then Allah brought him back. This is what the supernatural events which I'm trying to talk about, okay? That with time, you notice everything gets miraculous now. So when he came back, ثُمَّ دَعَا قَوْمَهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ. He started propagating again and inviting people to Allah again. They then chopped off his left horn. And that is why he was called Dhul-Qarnayn, because he had two horns, and these two horns were chopped off and they were hit, okay? Now, this is Musannaf ibn Abi Shayba's narrative. When you come to Tafsir al-Qummi, the Shi'i sources, so Musannaf ibn Abi Shayba is the 3rd century. Tafsir al-Qummi is the 3rd, 4th century. Two things add up. One is that he mentions the time of his death. So he says that for 500 years Allah made him die, and then he brought him back to life. Okay, so the time period is mentioned. He proposes another understanding. He says he didn't die. Rather, this was a period of ghaiba. Okay, notice a Shi'i narrative now coming in. Okay, now I don't want to say it's right or wrong. Again, it's things which I'm trying to say that how narratives are evolving. Okay, this whole issue of occultation is being brought up now. That Dhul-Qarnayn had an occultation of a 500 period and then he was brought back. Okay, so this was Dhul-Qarnayn. This was just an introductory discussion. Come to Yajuj and Majuj. Now, before I get into the Quran, the concept of Yajuj and Majuj, or Gog and Magog, whatever we want to call them, is not exclusive to Islam. It's an issue which has been discussed since ancient times. Strangely, when you go to the book of Herodotus, also the history of Herodotus, he's called the father of history, the Greek historian. He also has a discussion on Gog and Magog, but with a different name. Lately, I've been seeing that some of the scholars, even within the Hindu scriptures, are now discussing the Gog and the Magog with a different name, Koka and Vikoka. That's the name which they are using. So this has come in Kalki Avatar. Now, Kalki Avatar is a book of predictions of the future in the Hindu scriptures. There's a discussion within the scholars. Is this a recent book, a 17th century book, or was it an earlier book? This is a discussion within the scholars, again, not our discussion, but it's a discussion which they are doing. Jewish and Christian texts are filled with references to Gog and Magog. Okay, in the books of predictions, again, so books of Revelation and all that in the Bible, you will notice that even in the book of Ezekiel, you will notice that they discuss this whole issue of Gog and Magog. Now, one interesting thing, I don't know if I should call it interesting or I should call it unfortunate thing, you will notice that when you come and research about Gog and Magog, or Yajuj and Majuj, you will notice that adherents of each religion or each faith apply it on their contemporary enemies. Whoever they consider their enemies at that time, they will apply the title of Gog and Magog on them. Okay, so you can search it very easily. Go on YouTube, you'll find some rabbis, some Jewish rabbis. They're applying the whole title of Gog and Magog on Iran and Russia and some Arabs, okay, referring to Palestinians and all whatnot. This is something you will see this happening even at the moment. Okay, now it's unfortunate or fortunate, I don't know. What can we say? Now, I don't want to get into the details again. Very briefly, I'm going to discuss this. I'm trying to prove that how has the narrative evolved. Now, come to the Quran. Quran discusses the issue of Yajuj and Majuj in Surah Kahf from verse number 93 till verse number 98, and in Surah Anbiya also, verse number 96 and 97. These are two places where the Quran discusses the whole issue of Yajuj and Majuj. Okay? Now, notice what Allah discusses in the Quran in Surah Kahf, verse number 93, حَتَّى إِذَا بَلَغَ بَيْنَ السَّدَّيْنِ. When Dhul-Qarnayn reaches between the two barriers, okay, he reaches a place where he couldn't understand them, they could not understand them, they could not understand him. Now this is a whole discussion again. How did they communicate? Scholars have different opinions again. They turn to Dhul-Qarnayn and tell him, can you make us a barrier so that these people cannot come and disturb us anymore? Quran discusses one characteristic of Yajuj and Majuj. They say, مُفْسِدُونَ فِي ard. This is the only one specific characteristic Allah discusses about Yajuj and Majuj. But when you come to the riwayats, you will notice how these characteristics now evolve, okay, which is again is not our discussion for today. Till verse number 96, Allah discusses how this barrier was made and details are being given. So, by the way, again, a tangent. Some scholars now will tell you that, oh, Quran teaches you even engineering also. Okay, so this is a discussion which some scholars have under these verses also. Can you see? Everything is there in the Quran, even engineering is there in the Quran. And thus you have different opinions within the scholars that, and I've discussed this partially in the previous discussions, in the previous series also. Okay, now, verse number 97, Allah discusses, it says, فَمَا اسْتَطَاعُوا أَن يَظْهَرُوهُ وَمَا اسْتَطَاعُوا لَهُ نَقْبًا. Okay, they couldn't pass through it, they couldn't penetrate it, nor could they make any hole to go through it. Now, when you come to hadith, you will see the different understanding. Very different understanding and a very different narrative. Now, verse number 98 is another discussion for scholars. قال, Dhul-Qarnayn now turns back to them and says, هَذَا رَحْمَةٌ مِّن رَبِّي. This is a mercy from my Lord. The barrier I have made for you, it's a mercy from my Lord. فَإِذَا جَاءَ وَعْدُ رَبِّي جَعَلَهُ دَكًّا. When the promise of my Lord will come, this barrier will be crushed altogether, okay, and will be destroyed. And you will see as we go further now, has this barrier been destroyed? Not yet. When will it be destroyed? These are all discussions of within the scholars. In Surah Anbiya, verse number 96, Allah discusses, حَتَّى إِذَا فُتِحَتْ يَأْجُوجُ وَمَأْجُوجُ. Okay, when the Yajuj and Majuj will be let loose, when they will open up. Now notice the word is used, Futihat Yajuj wa Majuj. Okay, and this has become a discussion also for contemporary scholars. وَهُمْ مِنْ كُلِّ هَدَبٍ يَنْسِلُونَ. So they will come from a slope and then they will race down from every slope down. This also has become a discussion. Is this a slope really literally referring to a slope, or it refers to plains now as we are discussing? This also now, which is again related to the last verse of Surah Kahf, which we discussed, وَاقْتَرَبَ الْوَعْدُ الْحَقِّ. Okay, when the true promise draws near, okay, when it comes near the promise of Lord Allah, فَإِذَا هِيَ شَاخِصَةٌ أَبْصَارُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. Notice the disbelievers will get surprised now. When the promise of Allah comes, the disbelievers will be amazed. Why? يَا وَيْلَنَا قَدْ كُنَّا فِي غَفْلَةٍ مِّنْ هَذَا. We were oblivious, we were negligent of this period and this event and this time. So scholars now are discussing, what is this time referring to? Okay, so let me give you a quick summary, and if I get time, I'll go through some of the opinions of the Mufassirin to show you how this narrative has evolved. So, discussion number one when it comes to Yajuj and Majuj is the characteristics. Notice the Quran says Mufsiduna fil ard. Only there were corruptors on the earth. That's all. When you come to the riwayats now, the majority of the riwayats just discuss their characteristics. Okay, strange characteristics. Inshallah, if we get time, we will discuss that. Number two. The proposed identity. So who are the Yajuj and Majuj? Who is or who are the Yajuj and Majuj? Who do we apply it on? Okay, so are they even real or symbolic or metaphysical entities? Now there are three opinions. Okay, are they real entities as it was understood by earlier scholars? Are they symbolic entities the way that it's being understood by contemporary scholars? Some are now proposing the metaphysical entities altogether. Okay, so, and that is why I say it now. The application you will notice in the 6th to 8th century, where there was a Turkish Mongols invasion, the scholars now, like Ibn Kathir and them, they will apply it on the Mongols now. And this is where I was saying that it's basically we look at the enemy and we say, oh, this is the enemy now, and we apply it on him. Unfortunately, this is the same thing the Christians and the Jews are doing, and same thing the Muslims are also doing. Okay, so this application you will see on the Mongols, on the Turks, okay, or the Tatars, again related to the same Russian, Ukrainian area, okay, Central Asia. So these are the applications. Now, with advancements of technology, the application and the proposed entities are changing now. Okay, so now there's a discussion that is Dhul-Qarnayn's barrier. Is it metaphorical or it's physical? And are Gog and Magog or Yajuj and Majuj symbolic or not? So some have said that it refers to Duwalun Jadida. Okay, these new colonialist corruptive states. Okay, as we go, we'll mention some. Or some have even inclined to say that it's Yajuj and Majuj are not entities outside. It's a symbol for materialism. You see where and where now, okay? The narrative changes all together. That's discussion number two. Who do we apply it on? Discussion number three, which the scholars have given different opinions again on, is the time of coming back of these Yajuj and Majuj. Okay, or the opening of the barrier, or when will they be let loose? The Quran says, "Hatta idha futihat Yajuj wa Majuj." Okay, when they will be let loose. When will it be? So some say it'll be near the day of judgment. Some say it's from the signs of the day of judgment. Some say during Akhir al-Zaman, okay, during the end of times. Some say after the appearance of Dajjal, opinion number 4. This was the opinion till the 5th century. 6th century onwards, a Shi'i scholar by the name of Abu al-Futuh Razi in his Rawd al-Jinan comes and proposes now a new narrative. He says it's near the time of Raj'a or the time of the 12th Imam alayhi salam. Can you see the narrative changing now? Okay. Now again, I'm not saying right or wrong. What I'm just trying to show is the change of narrative. Ibn Ashur, he's a famous Sunni mufassir, somebody who Sunnis are really referring to after Fakhr Razi, a very scholarly person also. He proposes another opinion, which is shared by 1 or 2 scholars as per my humble opinion. He says that the coming of Yajuj and Majuj has already occurred. It occurred in the 6th century Islamic Hijra. You get me? Today we are living in the 15th century, so almost 9 years ago. Yeah? My maths is becoming a bit weak now. Yes. So 9 centuries ago, Yajuj and Majuj came out and they've already come. Do you see the difference now? Okay. And he says that this is a miracle within the Quran, that it was giving a prediction of 5 centuries later. Okay. So this was the third discussion, that the time of their coming back. Discussion number 4 within Yajuj and Majuj is the whole issue of where is the wall, where is the barrier? Okay. Where did this Dhul-Qarnayn build the barrier, and where are Yajuj and Majuj stuck? Okay. And this is where, notice that till the 13th century, okay, Islamic Hijra, so just 2 centuries ago, none of the scholars proposed that they never spoke of a barrier, and they didn't identify a barrier. Okay? Rather, Alusi, Allama Alusi in his Ruh al-Ma'ani, he even says that Ibn Abbas, there's an opinion being attributed to Ibn Abbas which says that the barrier was in Armenia and Azerbaijan. He says this opinion has been wrongly attributed to Ibn Abbas. So till 13th century, there's no opinion on being given that where is the barrier. Okay? Rather, Allama Alusi in the 13th century also says that it's a place far northernmost region. Okay? A place which is uninhabitable. We cannot see it. Nobody can survive in them. Only the Yajuj and Majuj are surviving there. Okay? And it's a place which is an unknown land altogether. This was till the 13th century. And thus they used to understand it literally. The 14th century scholars and onwards now come and tell you, now with advancement of technology, scholars are coming and telling you, oh, we need to find out, where is this barrier? Was the Quran talks about this barrier? If you believe that this barrier hasn't been opened till date, then where is this barrier till date? Where is it? Okay, where are the Yajuj and Majuj stuck in it or not? These are discussions now they're having, and that is why now discussions come in that it's the China wall, and I don't know, it's the discussion about some wall it's a barrier within Yemen, or the famous opinion, some opinions discuss within Caspian Sea and Black Sea and all whatnot. These are discussions being done by scholars. Okay. Now, this was a snapshot and a summary of the discussion on Yajuj and Majuj. Very quickly, I give you a snapshot of how the narrative evolved within the tafsir. As I mentioned, I'm not going into riwayats. Riwayats is a whole new world. It's another world altogether. Inshallah, if we get time, some other time. Quickly, 2nd century. Okay, the mufassirin of the 2nd century come and tell you that Yajuj and Majuj they came out in the world and they started eating people. Ya'kulun an-nas. This is the actual wording. They literally understood that they would eat up people. Okay, not metaphorically or not symbolically, rather physically they understood literally that they would eat up people. As we go further, you will see this understanding. And the second narrative in the 2nd century is that the population was huge. So the understanding of the Sahaba was this, that when one from the Yajuj and Majuj would die, he would leave behind 1,000 descendants. Okay, 1,000 descendants. That's how many there were. And as we go further, we'll see this narrative changing. This is 2nd century. 4th century now. So some people would say, no, we don't have any books in the 2nd, 3rd century. Now 4th century is where the books are coming in. Now some of these are mentioned as riwayats, okay? And I've mixed Sunnis and Shias together. But look at how the narrative changes now in the 4th century. They'll come out, pass by a lake in Syria, which was full of water. So there's a mention of Syria, a lake in Syria only. And then later we'll go and see that the names of lakes and rivers increases. And then we'll see that no, the whole world's water will be taken away, okay? The narrative changes. So the first group of Yajuj and Majuj come, drink the water entirely, finish the water from this lake. The second group of Yajuj and Majuj come and see there's no water. And then they say that, oh, there was once water here, but it's now gone, showing the greedy part of themselves. Okay, this was one characteristic of Yajuj and Majuj. The second narrative now, Yajuj and Majuj are being described as those people who will reach by the sea. okay, they will grab everything in the sea, the fish, the crabs, the turtles. These are all mentioned in the riwayat, in the understanding in the books, okay? They will eat up everything in the sea, leaving nothing. They'll come on the land, they will eat up the grass and the leaves and everything. And then they will turn towards people. And then people will run away from them, and whoever they catch, they will kill them, and the first narration said he will eat them. The third narrative about them is that they will not enter four sacred mosques. Now, three are sacred. The fourth, I don't know why is it sacred. I don't know. I haven't done my research on this. It's Masjid al-Haram, the Prophet's mosque, Masjid al-Aqsa, and a mosque in Mount Sinai. I don't know which mosque is it referring to. So the opinion was this: they would not enter these four mosques. Now, can you see the narrative till here was the sea and the land, and now it comes to the sky now. The narrative increases now. So now when they've eaten up everybody on earth, okay, the narrative says that they will now turn their arrows towards the sky now. They will hit their arrows on the sky will turn back the arrows with blood, and they will say, see, we have killed the people on earth and we have killed everybody in the sky also. Okay, this is narrative, another narrative. Now, look at how the narrative changes. There, the first narrative says that the population is huge, one person has 1,000 children. This narrative increases by saying humanity is divided into 10 parts. 9 parts of it are related to Yajuj and Majuj. 1% are related to us humans. You get me? How the narrative changes now. That was showing only the vast population. Now it's showing that the population is so huge. It's 9 times the population of the humans. Where are they? God knows. Okay? Now, another narrative, notice this is what I'd say. The Quran says they're stuck. Okay? They cannot come out. They cannot make a hole in the barrier. This understanding, this is also taken from some of the riwayats, is that they keep on making holes in the barrier, and then at night, miraculously, that holes which they made, Allah patches that back and repairs it. Miraculously, it's repaired back. So now, strangely, this is there in books. Now I'm just mentioning, yeah. Yajuj and Majuj, mufsiduna fil ard. Where does inshallah and God come from? But this is the narrative which is there. Now, when they realize this, they start saying inshallah. Yajuj and Majuj now, when they're doing holes, they say inshallah. When they do inshallah, the barrier collapses and they come out. Okay? And then they will drink entire rivers now, leaving it dry, and then Furat is also mentioned. That's another narrative. Another narrative now, making it again, showing that either they were not humans and they were animals. They would be breaking the barrier with their beaks. That's the mention, okay, in the books also. There's some opinions the Sahaba had them, that they will break the barrier with the beaks and until it breaks. Again, contrary to what the Quran mentions. And then the last narrative in the 4th century is Prophet Isa alayhi salam. Now, can you see this? Now it shows that this is another opinion and narrative that they were at the time of Prophet Isa alayhi salam. That he turns back to Allah and says, oh Allah, we cannot withstand these people anymore. We cannot tolerate these Yajuj and Majuj. Can you destroy them? Okay? And then Allah sends a group of worms from the sky and they kill them, all of them. And then because of their death, they start stinking. The smell spreads all over. And then the birds now come and carry their bodies towards the sea now. We're being told that there's no water, there's nothing, everything is dried down. But now the birds now carry the corpses and the bodies towards the sea. Okay? And then after that, Allah sends rain for 40 days, and then that purifies the land. Okay? This is the narrative till the 4th century. The 5th century narrative now considers Dhul-Qarnayn very clearly as non-humans. It very clearly mentions that they have no resemblance to humans. They resemble beasts and animals. And they have traits of animals also. Okay, that's another narrative now coming in. Because when you see all the qualities now, you cannot fathom. Are these humans? They're eating a fish, they're eating grass, they're eating, turtles, they're eating. Which human does that? Okay, and that's now the narrative changes towards making them as animals now. This is the 5th century. This narrative goes on till you reach the 14th century. This is where I say it now. Questions now come in. Because there's advancement of technology now, questions start coming up. So now the question is now not about all these characteristics. Rather, the questions become different altogether. So question number 1. Is the whole story of Dhul-Qarnayn and Yajuj and Majuj symbolic or it's real? Okay? Are Yajuj and Majuj symbolic or are they real people, entities? Do you get me? Number 1. Number 2, where is the barrier? Okay, is the barrier even visible today? It's not visible. Is it broken? Is it not broken? These are discussions which now scholars are having. Has it been opened or not? And if it's not been opened, okay, then where is this wall? Because we're told that Yajuj and Majuj are stuck in within them. So are they still stuck within them? There's no wall today which is not penetrable today. Everywhere it's penetrable today. So where is that place now anymore? And thus you will notice the likes of Allama Tabatabai propose that this wall has gone underwater, it's not visible anymore. It's proposing an opinion like that also. Now, look at what Sheikh Jawad Mughniya proposes, and I finish with this. He says that if this is a promise which is supposed to come on the day of judgment, okay, or after Dajjal, that's the way the common majority opinion is, the way they use it, the mainstream opinion, then لَكَانَ السَّدْ مَوْجُودًا الْآنَ كَمَا هُوَ, he says, then the barrier has to be visible today, and has to be the way it was that time. وَمِنَ الْوَاضِحِ أَنَّهُ لَوْ كَانَ لَبَانَ. Okay, it's very clear that if that is the case, then this barrier would have been visible today. But we can't see it today. The world is now accessible from everywhere. We can't see this barrier or this wall anymore. Okay, so where is this wall? Is this wall even present till today? Is it broken, this barrier? What has happened? These are questions now scholars are asking. And that is why now notice some scholars go towards proposing that Yajuj and Majuj are not real anymore. They are symbolic entities. Okay, so for example, Ayatollah Sadiq al-Tehrani in his Al-Furqan says the 3 stages of global corruption. You see where and where he takes the discussion now. 2 stages are founded by Yajuj and Majuj, and the 3rd is now Israelis who are the proxy of Yajuj and Majuj. Okay, so some, as I said, say that Yajuj and Majuj is materialism, some then go further and all whatnot. In conclusion, all what I wanted to prove was this. Okay, there's a lot of discussions I've left, especially the discussion of riwayats. It's interesting, but it needs time and it needs energy also to be able to go through. I've collected all the riwayats, but to go through one in riwayats and make up that what's there in the second and what's there in the third and all that. Inshallah, if we get time, some other time we can mention that. What I wanted to mention in conclusion was that to display and to show it to you that narratives differ with time. Okay, they change with time. The understanding changes with time. A similar thing we will then come and see when we now discuss from next week, inshallah, the whole discussion on the personalities of Karbala. You will notice that the narratives keeps on changing, especially with time. Now, as I say, and I'll keep on repeating this again, because some will come and say, oh, you're trying to make a judgment. I'm not trying to make a judgment who is right, who is wrong. I'm leaving it on you as a researcher. And that's why I said in the beginning of previous lecture that these discussions are for those people who are interested in further research. Okay, to come and find out what is right and what is wrong. Let's pray to Allah again to give us the tawfiq to be able to understand the truth the way it is. And Allah should help the Madhlumeen and all the oppressed throughout the world, and especially the people and the Madhlumeen of Gaza, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.